right. So we got some Capcom versus SNK 2 running on the PS2 over here, and there is a reason for that, and I will get into that. But I just wanted to sort of, one of the things I do love about YouTube is coming up with like interesting thought discussions, right? I think that's always very fascinating because look at how certain things are going and how things are. I've got another idea for another video. That's all for the only pros, right? But I saw a comment the other day by someone on the channel. I can't remember who it was, but shout out to whoever that was. If you remember who it was, leave a comment in the description saying it was you. And they said something along the lines of, should online play be removed from, you know, fighting games, right? And I thought that was a really interesting thought, right? Because when you think about it, most fighting games that have existed, I would say at the majority, at least 80, maybe 85% of fighting games that have ever come out, if not more than that, never had an online feature ever. Ever, right? So when you played these games, or you practiced in these games, and if you were playing as just a fan of these games, or you were playing as someone who wanted to compete in these games at tournaments, it worked out because the one-to-one of what you were doing in the game would also translate one-to-one in the real-world tournament. Obviously, having a game, any game online, comes with a whole host of things, and obviously the genie is not going to go back in the bottle. It's not going to go back in the bottle. I love playing online. 99% of people that love to play video games online, especially in fighting games, are not going to want that taken away, right? This is just a thought experiment. I'm not saying the experiment will not fail, okay? But when you think about it, when people sort of, you know, we know that there are differences when it comes to like whether adding frames and stuff like that to online play with certain games, and it's different offline, so that changes the experience. I'm willing to bet, and I'm going to go on record and say this, that maybe some of the issues that I'm having with Mortal Kombat 1 could very well be for the fact of how they're changing the online experience versus how it feels offline. I've had other people say the same thing, that it is vastly different offline than it is online, and I'm willing to concede that notion, because if you guys are playing this in a setting that isn't connecting online, right, then sure, I'm willing to go, hey, yeah, maybe it is an online issue with the game. Maybe it is a PC issue with the game versus what they've already done on console, right? I would prefer to be wrong than right, okay, in that regard. So I think that's right. Anyway, you know what I'm saying, right? So what if fighting games had no online play, right? They realized that they couldn't have these games in a capacity that made it feel like if you wanted to become competitive, you could take this stuff and do it in an offline tournament, because there are differences. So therefore, and because you can't take what you're doing offline online, because the online experience changes and you then become acclimatized to how online is, right? So if you're making compensations and changes to your gameplay and strategy playing online because of the way online is, and you get so accustomed to that when you go offline or go to compete, you fundamentally go, whoa, hang on, I'm just give me a minute, I've got to recalibrate, because it is vastly different. Again, most fighting games that have come out in existence never had an online play feature, and yet despite that, there have been many tournaments run for all of these games over decades. They worked perfectly fine. You know, nobody was going, oh, you know, like, I couldn't get good at this game without online play. No, they could get good at the game regardless, because you had everything from like different difficulty settings, as well as just sitting in like practice modes and just training some stuff up, right? But people still ran tournaments. There were always tournaments, right? You go back all through history, there were always tournaments for these fighting games, regardless. Regardless. Do you think having online play in a fighting game is a net positive or a negative? Now, I'd say it's a positive because at the end of the day, you get a near limitless amount of people that you can fight, and that's great. You know, you get to test yourself against better and stronger opponents, and that's fine. That's good, right? But sometimes, like how I have my grievances with Mortal Kombat, where maybe the online experience is different. Maybe if I was playing these games offline against a real person, the experience might be different versus somebody online. It's particularly whatever platform it's on too. As I said, the PC one might be completely balked against the console versions when it comes to online connectivity, synchronization, you know, etc., 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 right? I'm willing to concede that, if that is the case and true. But has adding online to fighting games made it a better or worse experience, both for just the standard fan of the game, or to the actual only pro out there as well? Right? Yes or no? Okay. Obviously, like I said, you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. No one's asking for that. I'm certainly not asking for that at all. Right? But has it been an overall more positive or negative experience? Mostly positive, I'd say, because you get to meet lots of different people, fight lots of different people around the world, giving you certain connections you may or may not have. So there's a lot more positive than negative, but has it also changed the dynamic of how a fighting game works? Right? We've seen lots of cases in other genres of gaming where, because of online play, because people are fighting now against other people, certain developers go, oh, we need to start changing how the game is and balancing the game or whatever to accommodate as if it was real life and people were fighting against each other for real. Now, they didn't care about that before online play existed. We got our game, they had far more extensive gameplay testing, so therefore you got the game as is, and that was the end of it. Bugs and all, right? The advantage in the modern day is you get more patches. If something is truly broken, they can fix it. But we got less broken gaming because they had to make absolutely sure that they put these products out, because they didn't have the advantage of patching stuff like PC had for a long time, while consoles didn't, of patching these games and their issues out if there were issues. So they spent more time in quality assurance to make sure that the games were releasing in practically a near perfect form. The modern day, and this applies to any game genre, is that we do get games that are released half-assed. How many games get released with a day one patch, man? I mean, you know, like, day one patch, and it's like, what are you doing? Come on. Right? What are you doing? We know what they're doing. They're releasing a half-assed product, right? Knowing full well that they have a deadline to get it going gold. And so then from that point on, they're working on the balance patch or update patch or driver fixes or graphical glitch fixes or whatever else, getting that patch ready. So when you put the game in on launch day, you got to download this gigantic megabyte, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 megabyte file size, which is basically fixing the rest of the game, which normally would have been fixed before launch back in the day. Take that and apply it to online, where now when they make a fighting game, how many developers out there are looking at a competitive scene and going, well, even though they're tiny, absolutely minuscule, flea's dick size share of the actual fighting game community, there are still people that compete that are pushing themselves in a competitive way, but aren't going to the only pro stage, right? They still want to play online, they still want to be competitive. So what they do is they start to change the game to go, well, we need to, how are we going to make this competitive? And they start to modify things. And that modification can then affect the online aspect of it, because that's where, and this is where I think the fundamental difference is between the way I think and a lot of other people think versus the way a lot of other people think, is that the fun aspect starts to get removed, and we see this with other games as well. My son plays Rainbow Six Siege. Every single time they try and go competitive, try and accommodate the esports scene, the game gets fundamentally worse. Because what happens is, and I don't think this is possible, you start to remove the fun, right? When you start to go, I need to make this competitive. How's it going to look on stage? How's it going to look for professionals? What's their feedback? That's when the actual fun on the majority starts to get sucked out and replaced with, we need to make this, we've got to make this balance. We can't have fun anymore. And that is the primary concern where I always come back to about it being simply that this is a video game designed for entertainment and fun. Does online play affect that fun in a fighting game? Does it affect, how it used to be when we didn't have any online play and we just got the game and we had fun, and then some people might run some tournaments and you go off and play? I mean, I partook in an Ultimate MK3 tournament back in, how old was I? Probably maybe 20, 21 maybe, in a local arcade. I was playing, and then, I went in there and there was probably like maybe 10 of us, and because it was just a tournament run, and I think I came in fourth. The guy that won it, his nickname was Venom, and he used to play like this. Right, so we normally play, stick here, buttons here. He actually did the opposite. He was like this. I don't know why he did it like that. I don't know if it was because he had some particular issues with his arms or shoulders. I don't know. I've never seen it since, and it always stuck out. And he was absolutely fiend. He was a fiend, man, on Mortal Kombat. Absolutely brilliant. Really nice guy too. I hope he's doing well. So, that was awesome. That was so much fun. But we didn't have online play. Right? The only time we could play Ultimate MK3 back then, I'd have to, again, figuring out timelines, right, was playing on the arcade. You just play it on the arcade, and then you go into a tournament, right? We didn't even have, I'd have to check, but I didn't, and unless you owned a Saturn, again, I'd have to check the time frames. We didn't have the home version, especially if you didn't have the console that had it on, right? So, yeah, because Trilogy came out after we did that tournament, yeah. So, it's very interesting that despite online play being wildly successful and fun, most fighting games didn't have it, and yet they still ran tournaments, and people had a ball, right? So even though online play, I would argue, is definitely probably a net positive, has it changed the landscape of the way that people approach competitive play? You could apply this to any other genre that's got online play as well. Has it changed that? Right? Because I've mentioned this argument before. I play a game called Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, and it has been this way since the beginning. When you're fighting monsters in the world, obviously your skills will do X amount of damage. As soon as you go into the PvP section parts of the game that are designated for PvP, your skill attributes will change from being, saying, really overpowered to a more balanced level, because they know that if you did the damage against monsters against players, it's way too powerful. So the game actually automatically modifies the output of the abilities, so it's a more fair and balanced system. It doesn't affect people that only play against monsters or the PvE side of the world, like player versus environment. Then that also then doesn't affect how it is in the PvP mode. So then both schools actually get what they want. Right? The PvE people go, well, I don't want my stuff nerfed for people that want to compete, professionally. I want to still beat the shit out of this monster with this massive damage. And they go, cool, here you go, bro. And then the PvP people are going, no, we need this fair because that's way too overpowered. This is what stuff I've mentioned before with other people. Is that maybe fighting games need to get to a point where, yes, we actually do have two separate schools here of people who are not actively wanting to partake on that sort of competitive level versus the ones that do. Right? And I think that'll be a nice balance when it comes to online play, because then people would feel like, hey, I'm just chilling, I'm having some fun. Everything feels like I can, you know, enjoy myself and pick up everything nice and easily and have a ball. And then you got the pro scene that's like, right, this is our curated system. This particular system for this game is what is also going to be representative when we go to the actual tournaments. So that way we can do this. Now, obviously, the flip side of that is that people may go, well, you know, are they getting something that we aren't getting and vice versa? So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. But the crux of this entire discussion is online play. Online play being added to a game. Now, granted, games like this one, and many, many other games out there now, can be played online via things like S-Arcade, Fightcade, stuff like that, where you actually get to take these games that only had local co-op, and they essentially fool the game into thinking that you're connecting with someone next to you on the couch, but what you're really doing is connecting someone online. That's great. That's amazing technology. Anyone that, all the people that have figured that out, God bless you. That's great, because it allows people to go, hey, I want to play with my friends overseas or whatever for the first time, and you get to experience this stuff. I was playing Outworld Dragoon the other week, playing mostly MK2. I think we played maybe a little bit of Ultimate. Excellent. Very good. Very, very good player. Kicked my ass many times, right? Great player, right? Yet is an offline player. Primarily, he is a guy that plays offline fighting games. And yet he was still able to, you know, he was fantastic. His skill level, awesome, right? So, does online play affect, you know, if you play offline all the time, you go online, do you find that changes? Do you hate that it changes if you are finding that it changes? And while obviously, like I keep saying, we can't put the genie back in the bottle, I still think it's a net positive, but what things could change where it appeases all camps. Where it appeases the fan of the game that just wants to muck around and have some fun and maybe push themselves in the game versus the people that go, no, I really want to take this to the next level. What do we do, right? And I think, like, I think to a degree, you know, I've said this before as an idea. Maybe there should be a specific thing that people sign up for online. You know, you literally sign up for the list of people to compete in the online tournament, and then it's got a cutoff date. We see this in games all the time, like especially MMOs or PvP. They have certain cutoff dates to partake in particular tournaments and things like that. You got to sign up for it, then you're locked in, and that's it, right? These are the days you compete, and this is what you do. So what if they did something like that? And because of that, when you sign up for that particular rule set, and then they also have a training part or their own online part for people to practice or play online against people that are going into that they have separated out, you know, like they're balanced and everything like that, and the rest of us just get essentially all the fun stuff, you know, that isn't affected by, you know, if you know, the esports dreams of some of the developers have, right? That's just a thought, okay? And it all comes back down to the online play, because online play is obviously going to be in every single fighting game forever now. So how do we strike the balance between people that just want to get online and have some fun, feel like it's easy to pick up and enjoy, feel like they've got a chance, versus the ones that go, no, you know, this balance is going to affect this, I don't want that to happen, just leave things this way, and, you know, they work with a separate team, possibly, to get things changed or modified for that particular portion. I don't know, but it happens in other games. That's why I'm saying, like, it actually happens in other games, like Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, where they do have a fundamental change between this and that. So I don't know, but would you play, if for whatever reason your internet went out, could you play Mortal Kombat? Actually, you can't, because it requires... Oh, no, you can play it offline, right? But could you play any fighting game that you play online right now? Could you play it offline and still be happy? Could you do that? Now, this is the interesting part, because I know when I talk to Foxy about this, he reckons, oh, everyone just ends up online. That might be true for some people. However, if you couldn't get online, would you still play it? If you didn't have online for a week, just for that game, not for everything else, just for that game, would you be happy playing the game offline? If the answer is no, then I think that's a very interesting point of view. And that leads to a video I'm going to do as well. If the answer is yes, it means that also is going to be part of that video. But it means too that you're able to enjoy this game as a product and a fun source of entertainment. And that component isn't that big of a deal missing out because the rest of the game offers so much more for you. Okay? That's why I'm wondering if while online play is awesome and I love it with all games that they've got it, has it become such a focal point that it's at the massive detriment to the rest of the game? And can you enjoy that if you're missing that one component of the game? Anyway, catch you next time.